I'll slowly start our introduction here. And once again, thank you, Jenny. Good to see you. Hi. Uh, Thank you all for being here. And I recognize some folks. I would imagine some of you, maybe this is the first time you've been to one of our online events. If that is the case, be sure, if you're so inclined, to stay in touch with us. And you can do that by going to our website, zenpeacemakers.org, and subscribing to the newsletter. It's free. We put it out once a week, and it has all of these upcoming events. And if you're so inclined, you can become a member of Zen Peacemakers. It also is free. It takes about 30 seconds. There's no approval process. And you'll be joining 6,000 plus other Zen Peacemakers around the world. So we welcome you. And for those people who already are members, it's nice to have you be here today. Now we're getting people coming in. This is our Peacemakers Circle format, and we do one of these once a week, sometimes more than once a week. And at Zen Peacemakers, we have a number of different focus areas that we work on, and then our members and affiliates are focused on. And this could be imprisoned people, food insecurity, homelessness, war and peace, gender issues, racism, the environment, the arts, pure dharma, interfaith issues, etc. And we try to really mix it up, from one to the next, so we keep it interesting, and we try to bring in interesting guests who are, experts or deeply involved in those areas of focus. So that's why we're here today. Everything Zen Peacemakers does, other than our in-person bearing witness retreats in Auschwitz in November, the Black Hills in July, and Alabama in April, everything we do other than those three is free. And a tremendous amount of work goes into, setting up and managing these events. So, with my executive director hat on, if you can help us a little bit, you can go to the website and donate, and that helps keep us solvent so we can keep doing this. So that's all of that I'll do. So I'm so happy to have our friend Ruth Wallen back. Ruth has been our guest once, maybe twice before. My memory is aging, but and it's so nice. And she is accompanied by my Dharma sister Sam Sokyo Randall today, and she will be talking about walking with Sequoias last year, bearing witness to devastation and regeneration. And Ruth has a scientific background, educational background. She turned to the arts. She's a senior teacher in the Shambhala tradition. So she really brings a rich, varied experience to these topics, and a big heart. I can tell you that for sure. So go ahead and relax, and I am going to mute myself and step back and hand this over to Ruth and to Sam, however you guys would like to step in. So thanks everybody for being here. I really appreciate it.
I too would like to thank everyone for being here. It's nice to see a lot of new faces. It was about 10 years ago, I think, that felt really called to start walking with trees that have been impacted, that are dying from urbanization, globalization in the form of introduced species, and climate change and all of its guises, bark beetles, drought, fire. Sequoias, walking with the Sequoias has been a special pleasure. It was nice to share some observations with some of you last year. I'll be building on that. This year, it was really wonderful to be joined by Sam Randall, it was Sam actually that we met 3 years ago that first introduced me to Zen Peacemakers practice. So without saying anything more, what I'd like to do is start with a contemplation on a stump that I met in my first trip to the Sequoias in 2020. And it was the first stop on our retreat last summer. So let's start with this contemplation. People may still be filing in. And then I'll give a longer introduction. Let's just see if I can share my screen. Okay, can everyone see and hear?
Looks great, Ruth.
Okay, great. Okay. Dearest Stump, please accept our greetings as we circumambulate you 3 times, honoring your presence as a living stupa. Living? I don't mean to deny that your life abruptly ended when most of your being was cut off and tumbled to the ground. Yet your remains have such a magnetizing presence. Let us sit and breathe with you. If not breathing with you, then with the ferns at your base and with all the trees that surround you. You look much the same as before. From where we sit, your billowing wooden curtains open to a flattened interior, a sheared off fire scar from long ago, perhaps exacerbated by the rough fire of 2015. Your massive form narrows several feet above the ground, as if pushing your colossal being towards the sky. You were cut down 124 plus 8 years from the 19th century. That's 132 years ago. The same adaptations, resistance to fire, insects, and fungi that allowed you to live so long also provide resistance to decay. The enormity of your presence so long after death is astounding, but nothing compared to how long you live. Imagine the many events in human history that had occurred over your unfathomably long 3,200-year lifespan, beginning long before the rise of the Pueblo cultures or the birth of Christ. But think also of Thomas Berry's comment that Western cultures tend to emphasize the experience of time, which is fragmentary and anxious, rather than spatial awareness, which is complete, serene, in touch with the wisdom of the season. Was I, have others, been so captivated by the dimension of time that we were blind to the profound ways that you hold space? You were present for every one of those moments in time, your roots expanding out radially into space underground, your branches expanding out radially into the air above. You reached your full height at a relatively young age, maybe 400 or 500 years old. After that time, you have continued to grow outwardly as your radius, the reach of your presence, expanded with the annual addition of each new ring. So many beings live their whole lives in your midst. Your branches, which gradually thickened into the size of trees, were their universe. So many others were touched by your unbroken company, a continuous offering of nowness in all directions, east, south, west, north, to the earth below and the skies above. These small nude trees at your side, likely firs given the myriad of bare branches that curve down from their trunks, stand as reminders of the recent destructiveness of bark beetles, cutting life short. But you and your fellow sequoias were largely impervious to beetles, your being a constant presence, changing so slowly. If not outside of time, you bring the polarities of time and space into conversation, just as Barry yearned for. Yet 132 years ago, loggers tried to bring you to an abrupt end. They cut you down at a height of 50 feet and then hollowed out the trunk below and divided the exterior into 64 14-foot sections to be crated, shipped, and reassembled at the Chicago World's Fair of 1893. But fairgoers deemed your hollowed trunk the California hoax. An interpretive sign asks, seeing is believing, or is it? Seeing is believing. Believing what? That a tree could grow so large, that men could be so clever, strong, brave, callous, greedy, so blind as to cut you down, that you could be felled? Yes, but owned? 50 homes or more from one tree. Your dazzling girth sparked fantasies of instant wealth that shattered when you fell. Even if you were provided a gentle landing in the boughs of other trees, your wood was too brittle to fashion beams that would support a dwelling. A photographer, C.C. Curtis, meticulously documented your slaughter. He invested heavily in printing a trove of 50,000 prints of your likeness to sell in Chicago. But although the Kings River Lumber Company had promised him a booth at the fair, there was no record of his registration. The Chicago News Company had sole rights for concessions inside the exhibition. Eventually, Curtis was able to sell a few prints, buried the rest under the floor of a building that burnt down, and he returned to California, penniless. Seeing it is believing. What is it that we see? Stumps of other sequoias dot the nearby meadow, dot the land for miles in either direction, whereas the elaborate indigenous network of mills, flues, and trusses that hasten the destruction of your fellows is long gone, visible only in the photos of C.C. Curtis. One Curtis photo shows 18 men holding hands, arms outstretched, encircling your trunk before you were cut down. The photo is often cited as evidence of your immensity. If these men had turned inward instead of facing outwards, could they have seen you? Could they have seen you as a living being? If they had turned inward, how would they have seen themselves? Walking around you again, let's step into a hollow big enough to provide shelter from a storm, if one could bear to be engulfed in darkness. Let us linger. May we touch you. Your wood that looks so hard feels rather soft and porous. If we stay long enough, will our fear of the dark also begin to soften? When we emerge, the light is blinding. What is it that we see? What is it that we cannot? What is it that we choose to perceive? You who are present to time and space, darkness and light. Teach us. So before going further, I'd like to ask you to please share in the chat any questions, curiosities, or reflections that this reading offered for you. And I'm going to stop the screen sharing for a moment. Anybody? Please don't be shy. If you need some time to think. Well, while you're thinking, I will just add that I would like to make some land acknowledgement. Firstly, for all the tribes that have held this space for so long, where this reading is about, at least their English or their names that have been used in Western European culture the Monos, the Yakuts, the Tabul Tulabal, the Paiutes, and the Western Shoshone. I'd also like to acknowledge the Kumeyaay, who live on the land where I'm speaking at this moment, both the ancestral people who walk this land who still hold this land sacred today. So I will read a few things from the chat. I love the question and image of turning inward. Thank you. Where is the stump located? Yeah, so the stump is located in Giant Sequoia National Monument. It's just north of Kings Canyon National Park. Is the stump still alive? That's a really good question. Are stumps alive? Let's just hold that, and we can talk about that more in the discussion. How tall is the stump? I don't know, but I would say over 20 feet. It's quite tall. Yes, the lumber from the tree was not suitable for home building. Sequoias are notorious for shattering when they're felled, so they're mainly used for fence posts and shingles. It's also helped why they have been preserved as much as they were, but it's also a testament to the greed of humanity that where the stump sits, the Converse Forest was once the largest grove of sequoias, but is no longer. I was appalled by the hubris of people, the men who cut down the tree. It seems that hubris has been passed on to us as inheritance. Shall we reject it? Incredible how documentation was rejected, hidden away, then burned in a fire, symbolic. Thank you for this powerful reading. So I think with this, I will continue. Just to let you know that I'll be sharing both reading and images. Many of the images are in the form of a montage that combines a series of glimpses to intensify the experience. I'll be mostly reading. The words are more poignant that way, I think. And then, of course, Sam will be sharing some reflections, and we'll have plenty of time for discussion. So let me share my screen again. Why isn't this letting me go? There was one blank slide. I'm having a technical problem, so I'm going to have to stop the screen share and do a little dance and see if I can get to the next screen. Sorry. Let's try again. Sorry for the technology is always a challenge.
There you go.
Yeah, but it's not letting me here. Okay, now can you see? Okay, just takes a minute. Oh. So Redwood Canyon is a jewel in Sequoia Kings Canyon National Park, and the rest of this presentation will take place there. And when I first visited it in August 31st, 2020, it was home to the largest old grove of living sequoias. The other old grove is no longer in existence on the planet. And the inviting trail followed a ridgeline that was studded with sequoias, tall pines, firs, and cedars. And after a couple miles, you dip below the ridgeline to oaks, and then up again and over the ridgeline and onto the other side into this magnificent grove called the Sugar Bowl, a dense strand that was composed almost entirely of sequoias. Unfortunately, less than 2 weeks after my visit, flames from lightning fires, which were already somewhat clouding the air, converged into the SQF complex fire that scorched 175,000 acres and 22 sequoia groves. And unlike the fires of the past, climbed all the way into the crowns of the tall trees, and it destroyed 10 to 14% of all living sequoias. Then the next year, in 2021, another fire, the KMP complex, tore through Redwood Canyon, where we're standing, and along with the Castle Fire, burned even more of the forest. In 2 years, 13 to 19% of all sequoias perished. And the sequoia, the Sugar Bowl, was subject to very high intensity fire. So here we are in Redwood Canyon, September 14th, 2024. So this picture
Wow.
from older. When the trail rounded a bend, there it was, the Sugar Bowl, a forest of tightly packed sticks, save for green domes atop a very few of the tallest blackened trees. Most of the trunks had over only a thin covering of branches. In contrast, the ground that had been reduced to ash was now covered by the bushy greenery of ceanothus and elderberries, mixed with the primarily brownish hues of dried grass, withered lupins, a composite of fading white flowers, and some thistle, a pesky introduced species that spreads after fire. Mixed in with all of this were sequoia seedlings, some likely planted by the National Park Service, others not. This was a welcome sight, regardless of how they had arrived. The trail quickly petered out. That hadn't changed, but this time I would take care not to lose the way back. Slowly, we made our way to the far side of the ridge. 2 years ago, I had to walk with caution, on the lookout for places where the soil might still be hot or give way because a tree's roots had been burned underground. Now we had to pick a path through piles of logs and branches, partly covered by new growth. Although I could no longer see them from a distance, the shattered trees, which you are already seeing here, with the log that stabbed the sky like the giant thumb, called to me. We soon found ourselves directly in front of the log. Nearby stood the thick trunks of sequoias whose tops had been blasted off by flame. While it was still possible to peer down the mountainside to the valley below, now only the tops of huge trunks of wood were visible among the grass, chaparral, and recently fallen branches. As the settlers built farms, filled marshlands, and drained Lake Tulare, once the largest lake west of the Mississippi, surely the trees felt the temperatures rise. How much less moisture drifted up from the valley? For how long have the trees sensed catastrophe coming? What have they not been able to tell us? What are their remains still towering above us, trying to tell us now? Since my last visit, I had imagined placing a bench here to sit and be present to the death and loss so palpable in this place. I had thought about how to convince the Park Service not only to place the bench, but to allow me to design a small interpretive plaque. Now it was clear that this bench would only exist in my writing. Probably the trail never went here, but certainly when the Sugar Bowl is open to the public again, the trail will be rerouted to the opposite side of the ridge, where there are few trees, not here, which will be deemed too dangerous to approach without a hard hat for many years to come. Nevertheless, this is the spot to which I will always return, certainly in my imagination, and hopefully in the flesh, to contemplate the relationship between the rich farmland in the central valley below and the well-being of the forest above. Bowing, we continued diagonally towards the clearing with the fallen log and the small bent oak tree skeleton on the opposite side of the ridge, taking care where we stopped, passing clusters of sequoia seedlings and the elderberry bushes laden with purple berries. Just as I had 2 years ago, we sat on the fallen log, looking outwards at row after row of blackened silhouettes, some abruptly truncated, many with spindly appendages clawing the bright blue sky, wisps of greenery clinging to one sequoia, barely visible among the shadows. We sat in silence until I turned to Sam, indicating that it was time to sing. Om tare tu re swaha. Om tare tu re swaha. And Sam, if you want to unmute and join, please do. Om tare tu re swaha. Om tare tu re swaha. Actually, this might not work too well in Zoom. We sang and sang and sang, and then sat in silence as the melody continued to echo. Dear trees, what words can we offer you? The mantra that we chant of White Tara, the one who sees in all direction through her 7 eyes, may offer vision and healing, that the forest may return in some form, that people may return as well to see the forest in its current state. Maybe the bench I envisions belongs here, where a log already serves as our bench. Trees, would you like offerings of prayers, expressions of gratitude, and a willingness to listen for wisdom in the ashes? October 12th, 2024. In the closing hours of Yom Kippur, the Jewish Day of Atonement, as my form of observance, I choose to contemplate this recent walk. Yom Kippur begins with the poignant chant of Kol Nidre. The meaning of this prayer, which has always seemed obscure, about being absolved of vows that one makes between oneself and the divine, suddenly ring true. The words echo with eco-artist Helena Newton Harrison's assertion that we are living in the time of the force majeure. In a legal context, the force majeure refers to a superior force that frees one from contractual obligation. Reframing the concept in ecological terms, the Harrisons described the force majeure as an oncoming storm in the form of rising seas and intensifying heat that overrides contracts or behaviors based on extractive technologies, exploitive economics, and ideologies of progress. The trees at the Sugar Bowl are not merely compelling atonement for misdeeds, as important as that is, but interrogation of the vows, contracts, and habitual ways of thinking that bind us from fully facing current conditions. We looked out at the trees remain, but we were not separate from them. We sat where we did because our animal beings were too fragile to sit among the falling roots of the forest. Taking the broader view, we were sitting in the middle of the destruction, the opposite wall of the scorched canyon to our backs. I recall my last visit when alone, lost in blackness and shock. I couldn't find the way back, kept tracing my steps until I let go of hope of finding an overlook, a vantage point that did not exist. Me made me turn to the safety of our car, but this experience is forever a part of us as we are forever a part of the forest. How can we be of help? We are constantly told that there is so little time left. Thresholds like 1.5 degrees may have already been passed, Tipping points, if not already reached, will be soon. Does a sense of urgency propel us into clinging for the very practices and ideologies that so radically changed this forest in the last 150 years, a short time compared to the life of a sequoia? How do we know? Scientists claim that the forest never burned like this in the past, into the crowns of mature sequoias. So how can we know what will come next? How can we dare to face the array of emotions evoked by the accelerating drama of life and death playing out all around us? How can we learn to sit with uncertainty? There will be a need for many benches. Redwood Canyon, Kings Canyon National Park, September 15th, 2024. The next day, we visit Redwood Canyon again. This time we follow the path down the center of the canyon. Our walk is reminiscent of the photo montages that I construct. Incomplete views, colliding perspectives, too many details demanding attentions, pieces of the puzzle that do not neatly fit together. Descending into greenery, blue skies and bright sunlight overhead, walking with delight into the heart of the forest, enveloped by immensely tall trees with massive auburn-colored trunks, sequoias that grow in astounding profusion. Young firs rise with all their greenery from the forest floor. The taller trees are all vibrant and alive. Naked beetle-ravaged skeletons have no place here. Forest bathing. What an apt term. How glorious to bathe in the warmth of the forest. What a joy to be held in the heart of this canyon, to let go and be permeated by the greenery. The trail parallels a stream that nourishes a fecund verdant understory, both ferns and an endless variety of green leaves. Here, the palmate lupin leaves shine emerald green, and even in September, sprout an occasional purple bloom. Dogwoods are decorated with purple berries amid dried bloom. Fallen trees, there are many of them. The mass of a sequoia is even more remarkable when it is possible to walk alongside them. One tree has fallen across the path, but there is already a new trail around their root ball, and the surprisingly hollow hole left in the ground where they once stood. No wonder that the main way sequoias are said to have died in the past is by toppling over. Even if the fire didn't burn heavily here, maybe the flames or the flooding of the following year impacted the roots of some of the trees. We passed two markers indicating the work necessary to fix the trail. The forest is changing. We are entering an area where much of the understory has been burned. The trunks of the trees are blackened and the spindly fir saplings are naked. Looking upwards, we are still enveloped in green. In the occasional openings in the forest floor, we spot sequoia seedlings. We come to the turnoff for the Sugar Bowl Trail. The path that leads upward to the Sugar Bowl is clearly delineated here. Before long, green fades to black. The sight ahead is all too familiar. What was once a forest stretches out in front of us as far as one can see, as a wall of both sides of the canyon. We are enveloped in blackened trunks, some slender sticks, others massive poles, some still clothed with grayish, gangly appendages, others with disheveled tangles, often with branches that hang languidly or jut outwardly as lifeless stubs. Bits of foliage cling to some of the tallest trees. My obligatory search for survivors finds possibilities of pine and fir, but definitely few sequoias, recognizable by the thickness of their branches and trunks. And this is not letting me advance my slides. Okay, there we go. Most commonly, if I find a viewpoint that is not backlit by the glaring sun, the bits of remaining foliage show no sign of life. Releasing my neck from craning upwards, black is mixed with bright green, yellow, and red. How can death be so colorful? How can rebirth not be colorful? The bright, unshaded sun has painted the ground. Bright red patches of trumpet-shaped flowers of California fuchsia, the red and yellow monkey flowers, large umbels of white blooms, and of course, ceanothus, a nitrogen fixture which arrives quickly after fire. Before long, the trail crosses the creek where it is shallow enough to pick a pathway across the rocks. We enter Sequoia Narnia, as Sam calls it. Sequoia seedlings are everywhere. Many are just a few inches tall, others about knee height. And we do find a few that reach the top of our hips. We stop to eat a late lunch, much to the irritation of the hummingbirds attracted to the fuchsia. The cleared rocky area where we sit is quite small, so we eat quietly until the hummingbirds are comfortable enough to return to the flowers. I scan the mountainside for seedlings. There are some, but my attention is drawn to another unfamiliar shrub with catkins. Water birch has sprouted among the ceanothus. Rewind. The way back repeats the story in the opposite direction. Sam, who is in the lead, stops in front of a blackened shroud, a hollow of what was once a huge tree. Then it is my turn. The opening in front of me does not invite entrance. I stand staring into the darkness, emptiness, a dark void. What flames could take down this huge tree? These char's remains will not stand as a relic for hundreds of years, but soon crumble, returning to the earth. We must now carry the story. We continue our way back up the canyon. Or is it forwards, out of the ravaged forest? We are surrounded in greenery again. Vestiges of fire recede. The smell of forest hangs in the air. We breathe in the glorious forest. We bathe in the forest. This is a precious moment to feel held, enveloped, yes, loved by the beauty of this vibrant forest. Give thanks for the substance, this wondrous lushness, which provides strength to tell of all that we have experienced. Verdant forest, burnt forest, scorched forest, regenerating forest, regenerating scorched forest, burnt forest, verdant forest. Give thanks. Then on the last day of our journey, we were able to travel this trail in both directions. A trail full of life in all its directions, holding beauty in all its dimensions. A trail of wonder to which I will return as long as I am physically able. Giant Sequoia National Monument in Kings Canyon National Park, September 16th. The weather has changed dramatically. The trees are enveloped in mist, their crowns invisible. Crawling out of my tent into a blanket of thick fog, I brace against the steep drop in temperature until, walking around the perimeters of our campsite, marveling at how the forest has transformed overnight, I sense that I too am held in this gentle, moist air. What a change from the hot, dry summer. Last night, we held council by candlelight in Sam's butts. It was just the two of us, but we needed this formality to end our journey. Sam will stay longer, but now I must take my leave. We eat a sumptuous breakfast. Afterwards, I meet her eyes with mine full of tears. What a journey this has been. I stop at the General Grant Grove. We both agreed to pay homage to the giant trees assembled here, which were fortunately spared the axe before we leave the park. Clothed in fogs, the sequoias have such a different presence. It's always hard to take in the totality of these tall trees. Now I can't even see a giant until I am almost upon it. and even then, not always the full extent of the tree. The fog is like a series of veils, revealing one detail for a moment, obscuring it the next. Instead of straining to see upward, my attention turns to the ground. The bark beetles are continuing to take their toll. Any dead tree seems to be quickly felled, both so it won't fall on someone and to decrease its flammability. The small branches and logs are arranged neatly in triangular spoils piles. There are patches of shrubs, but otherwise the ground seems carefully raked, cleaned of all but the smallest sticks, of any debris that might contribute to a fire. The fog turns briefly into rain. Fire is not an immediate worry. Someday, this precious grove, like all groves, will burn. In the past, fires rarely killed the tallest trees. But now? Yesterday's Sam shared Ho'oponopono, a Hawaiian practice which consists of 4 lines. I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you, I love you. The words can be said in any order. Although I appreciate how deeply the practice resonates for her, the words don't quite sit right for me. I'm sorry, yes, I am so sorry for the severity of the fires, for all that has burned in so many places. Yet I find myself hesitant to take responsibility. I feel that first I must become a we, or many we's. And forgive me? I contributed to the rising carbon emissions by driving a hybrid car to get here. On a personal level, I need to continue to take inventory of my behaviors to lower my footprint on the planet. But as a society, the process of apology, the process of deep recognition of harm that tremendous overconsumption has caused both fellow humans and all non-human communities has hardly begun. The fog feels like a miracle, that the forest can still regenerate moisture, can be shrouded in mystery, can dampen like growing rage and hope. Can those of us descended from ancestry new to these lands admit how much we live in a fog, how much we don't know, how much has been lost and forgotten, that the ancient ones who were ruthlessly slaughtered and driven from these lands once knew? For the last 4 days, I have been obsessed with finding sequoia seedlings, heartened by all the regrowth, and curious how much of it that we saw was planted by the Park Service. The actions of the Forest Service or Save the Redwood League are another matter. For those of you that were here last year, I shared this view of Alder Creek Grove at Sequoia Crest, which is owned and managed by Save the Redwoods League. And this area was logged, sprayed with Roundup to prevent undesirable growth and reseeded. A year late, the area still looks so desolate, with only thin brown grass surrounding the thriving green seedling. The more I walk in the forest, and the more I find the assertions in the environmental assessments written by the Forest Service disturbing. Land managers assert that the nitrogen-fixing ground cover, like the ceanothus, that returns quickly after fire is aggressive and must be removed, along with the dead falling trees, to allow for replanting. Land managers assume that there is no existent seed bank in areas of high intensity fire. Therefore, none or very few seedlings will be disrupted in the process. I ask, why not start by considering the health of the soils from which all life springs? The first issue is to reduce potential erosion, as floods often follow fire, removing whatever soil is left. But as I share all of this, unfortunately, budgets are being cut and dedicated foresters are losing their jobs. So it's even harder to have discussions with well-meaning people about how to nurture the forest. So I hope that we can continue this conversation in the discussion. Verdant forest, burnt forest, scorched forest, regenerating scorched forest, burnt forest, verdant forest. Thankfully, the stare the trail still leads in both directions, but for how long? Thank you very much. So now I think Sam would like to say a few words and then we can have discussion.
Thank you, Ruth, and thank you everyone for being here. I'll just say, just right from the beginning, that it was really moving for me to see the images and be brought back so directly for myself to such an intimate experience. When you were chanting the Om Tare Tutare, tears came right away. And then when I saw the shroud, we dubbed it the shroud, which was the deeply burned, massive base of the Sequoia. So yeah, I'll share some reflections and some images. So I'm an artist and Zen practitioner, and I was involved with Green Faith, which is a global environmental and climate multi-faith movement, and former executive director of the Arbor Institute, which combined art and ecology and contemplative practice. And for the last almost 3 years now, I've been living as a pilgrim in my bus. And I go where I'm called and move with what moves me. And Ruth invited me to join her in this retreat in September. And I was very grateful to be able to make the passage over to meet up. And it was my first time being with Sequoias. I had not been to, I've driven through a redwood forest, but hadn't spent much time, and I had not visited the Sequoias before. So it was really deeply moving. And I'll share that the progression of our time together, it was 5 days, and it really was, Ruth, just beautifully designed like a full bearing witness retreat. If any of you have been to Auschwitz or with the Native American retreats, or in Alabama with bearing witness to racism, where we started with, there was a lot of learning. We were camped initially in a campground up in the Kings Canyon National Park, where we had access to the stumps, and there was an interpretive ranger that was quite charming, that took us on a hike and learned quite a bit. For me, was very useful to learn about the different life stages of the Sequoias. And then we moved deeper. We relocated midway to a dispersed campsite. So outside of the national park, you can camp in the forest. So we were camped by ourselves then, with just the trees and the land. And then we descended down into Redwood Canyon. You actually do drive way deep down. And so my experience was both, moving deeper into the forest, into where it was just us and the trees, away from the civilized kind of world, and then moving deeper into our hearts. By day 3 and 4 and 5, we were very, very deep into it. And then even that hike within Redwood Canyon, as Ruth described, we moved from this just so alive part of the forest and then into what felt like, just the from the most life to the most death, and then back out again, back into life again. And so moving through what felt like a veil, this kind of theme of veil felt really present. We were just in there. If any of you have been present when someone is dying, it's kind of like that. You move in and out of the veil from the living world and the world of the death. So that was really strong for me. And also as an artist, following when Ruth left, I camped. I continued to stay for a few days, and there was some artwork that came from that I created. That the series I'd been doing was called Being Alive. I'd already been doing that kind of painting, and the colors that emerged in this series that I created specifically in the Sequoia forests, to me at least, really speak to this intertwining of life and death. And I'll share those with you in a moment. And the other thing I wanted to add is the Ho'oponopono practice, in my experience with it, is that it is very much a bearing witness practice, in that it does require becoming the we, that whatever I may be facing, whatever suffering in the world is happening, I am responsible for it all, in that I am we. The one body is responsible. And uh, yeah, and I had some tears as you were sharing about our council as well. Um, it was a very moving time together. So I'll just share briefly some of the imagery from the paintings that I created in the place where we camped. Here. And here first you'll see this is the white elephant, which I travel in. And this is our campsite. This was actually the day after all of the fog. So this is the morning after Ruth had left and the sun reemerged. So that same foggy place that she landed in at the end returned again to brilliant blue the next day. And here's Ruth cooking in my kitchen, which is also my living room and also my bedroom. And the paintings that I create, I usually pull, with permission, asking the land, a branch from a plant being that is where I'm camped. So these are manzanita bushes that were at our campsite that then I dip into ink to create the paintings. So really the painting is coming from the place. And these are, so they're Enso-like forms, they're circular forms, but they're not a singular brushstroke. It's a continuous circling until a form emerges and then touching into it with other colors while it's still wet. So they have some of this energy that I was feeling deep in the forest there, and then this richness, the darkness of the form. So that's the set that I created on that day. And these in particular have for me at least, evoke the quality of the shroud of the so much life and so much death, all intertwined, all at the same time. It was really remarkable to feel that interbeing of it. That's what I had to share, and grateful to be here again today. And we have put together a number of resources and things as our discussion unfolds, links and things to offer to you of what's going on currently too with the threats to our forests and different policy changes that are happening with the current administration. And so we can share that as we go, but I think probably just open up for general discussion first, and then moving into taking action from there. Yeah, I'll turn it back to Ruth. Thank you.
Thank you, Sam, so much for that sharing. It's lovely to hear everything in your words. I would really like to open it up for discussion, comments, reflections. So please. I think you can either, do you want people to raise hands, Craig? Jeff, is that easiest, or?
I can see everybody, so if you want to just raise your hand if your camera's on, or you can raise your electronic hand down under React. So either way, we'll see you. Colleen, I'm sorry, Lisa, you're up first. Thank you, and then Colleen.
I just wanted to mention that I was really upset, like Ruth, about the loss of these incredible trees. I have other friends who live in that region who feel very, like that's their mother forest. But I did come across an article about a forester who wrapped a burnt sequoia, and so it turned out that the tree turned to its roots and sprouted buds from deep within the tree that were like maybe 1,000-year-old buds broke to the surface. and sprouted. And I sent Ruth that article, but that to me is just the most amazing miracle. And I hope the person who's doing that continues to explore what that is. And that's all I wanted to say. But thank you, Ruth. This was a beautiful presentation. Absolutely, both of you, and Sam as well. I loved your work.
Thank you. And I'll just say, I'm kind of way behind in emails, but I think that it's the redwoods that you sent me the article about, and the redwoods that have the ability to do that. Redwoods are related to sequoias, but they're different trees. They're not even the same genus, I don't think. But it is amazing. The redwoods, after fire, they can be completely burnt and they still resprout. The sequoias need about 5 to 10% of their foliage to survive. So, Colleen.
Of course, when I raise my hand, the lawnmower is outside. So I'm going to ask my question and then I'm going to remute myself. Thank you, Ruth and Sam, for a beautiful, beautiful presentation. I'm just wondering, my question is on an emotional basis. Having two of you gone there and now returned, so to speak, to civilization, I'm wondering about the emotional leftovers.
Sam, do you want to speak first to that, or do you want me to?
Yes, yeah, I can share. As you know, Ruth had spoken of her travels and time with the trees in the past, and so I had that as kind of an idea. But just as with almost anything, until I was in real relationship, I had no idea really what that would be like. And so I think the amount of time we spent and that moving deeper and deeper, it just felt so intimate. And I feel in relationship with these trees now, for certainly, and intend to visit them again in my own ways. And Ruth and I likely at some point together again. We've already spoken to that. And so, and everywhere that I camp, I feel that I have they become kin to me, you know, and I think that's what's been lost a lot, is that experience of kinship. So I feel that really deeply with them. And I think that's where seeing Ruth's photographs again, I go, oh yeah, oh, I know you well. And so I hold that. And then I did bring along some of the Sequoia pine cones. So this one was actually bright green when I gathered it, and those gaps were closed, which is how they are initially. And then when they burn, or you know, with time over age, the gaps open up. And this is one that's been burned, and the seeds are in there. They're inside, and when that opens and the seeds come out. So this little one, which was solid green and traveled with me, about a year later, I had it in one of my little bells and I took it out and it had opened and all the little seeds had fallen out. And so it feels like this little fellow came along with me and is changing as we go. So yeah, that's been my experience.
So I can think of a number of ways to answer your question. I feel deeply privileged and grateful to be able to walk with these trees. Even when I first met them, there actually were fires going on all over the place, and I was cautioned about the air quality. And then you saw what happened. And the first time I went there, which I shared about last year, I went alone and the trail peters out and couldn't find my way back for a long time. And I realized that I knew the direction, but I couldn't find the trail. And going off trail is quite dangerous when there's, you know, when you're walking through a burnt forest. And that was that was my my disorientation, my shock kind of manifesting. And I do And at moments I dip into this, feel incredibly, incredibly deep, deep grief for what's happening and what's getting worse, quite frankly. And I feel like it's really important to tap into that. But what I think of when I think of your question, and I'm not sure if that's what you meant, but by residue is all the discussions about eco-anxiety and such. And I feel like it's really, really important to feel the grief. Because when you feel the grief, you feel your own vulnerability. And you also recognize that, as I talked about what I thought in Yom Kippur, which is a day of attunement for those of you that come from a Jewish tradition, we can't go back to what was. And we need to recognize that. But the other thing, and I'll speak from my tradition and also from the bearing witness practice, which others in here can speak to who've studied it more deeply. When I start a walk, we always start with offering gratitude as a kind of opening of heart. And from there, in the Shambhala tradition, it's something called raising wind horse or lungta and offering to the drawless or the spirits. And I think it's similar to the first tenet of the Zen Peacemakers, which is opening to uncertainty and not knowing. And when you open to not knowing, you're opening to the vastness of emptiness, but you're also opening to, and this is even more emphasized in the Tibetan traditions, to the luminosity. It's emptiness and fullness come together. And it's the sense, and I'm talking here because this is a Buddhist context, it's the sense of recognizing that fullness, emptiness, and recognizing our interconnected to all of that that gives me the strength to do this, and gives me the strength and can give us the strength to stay present. That's what we're also invoking when we do white Tara practice. So that, the residue is all of that, but it need not be trauma, so to speak, when it's mixed with that deep, deep opening. So I'm not sure if that's what you were thinking about, but I really wanted to share on that level.
Thank you, Ruth. Bill, you've got your hand up.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you both, Ruth and Sam. I spent many years as an environmental advocate for Sierra Club, working on giant sequoia issues back in the days when the Forest Service wanted to log in the sequoia groves, and in the establishment of the Giant Sequoia National Monument on Sequoia National Forest. And I had the depth of transformation I experienced standing below those trees, inexpressible. So thank you both for this deep sharing about it. And Ruth, for your last comments regarding the role of grief and gratitude in being present. When I first started spending time with the trees, it was often some interaction of present and past, but now it's past, present, and future entangled. And these massive trees' vulnerability to climate change, brings grief into my heart because they, as you know, depend on snows. The slow melting of snow is what waters them, and they topple over because their roots aren't deep. They spread out. I think the three tenets have real application here. This taking action, I think, in this moment is very, very important, as this administration and Congress cut funds for the Forest Service and remove firefighting service. I'll just say a couple more things and be quiet. The first is a big growth area for me over the decades has been the reemergence and integration of indigenous fire stewardship on the forest, and I hope that can continue through the Trump years. And you've inspired me to think about, since I live in Los Angeles, how I could replicate what you've shared here and share that with some folks in the community here in Los Angeles. So an appreciation, some reflections, and an inspiration. So thank you.
And I live in San Diego, so I come to LA periodically, so would also be glad to share. Other comments or questions? Donna?
You're muted, Donna.
I've been moved deeply by your presentation, Ruth and Sam. I really attune with trees too, and I'm touched by just the deepness of the witnessing, because maybe in that process of touching into the darkness and the depth of what life and death together can offer us, the depth of that it can give us some strength to move forward and keep strong through what we're dealing with, and to get to get more answers from these trees about how to move forward and how to live in the struggle of life and death that they're facing. It just feels like there's so much to learn from this kind of a deep experience with trees.
Thank you. Anyone else?
I don't want this to be too much of non sequitur. I'm guilty of that sometimes. Sam's been to my house. She knows. I live in the forest in the midst of thousands of trees, and I just wanted to share it. It's subsided just now, but I have a metal roof, and we just had the most beautiful thunderstorm downpour, and the trees and I are smiling. It's the great when you live in the forest. It's the greatest sound that I can think of. And the second thing, Ruth, when you began, just looking at the stump and hearing your words about size and scale and the pass and how much time passes, the age of everything, and just the relative size of things and how tiny we are compared. And many of you probably know this poem, and I won't read the whole poem. But I was just reminded of the last stanza of Gary Snyder's Front Lines, and it really goes right to how I felt when you were talking. And those lines are, "As the cricket's soft autumn hum is to us, so are we to the trees, as are they to the rocks and the hills." As the cricket's soft autumn hum is to us, so are we to the trees, as are they to the rocks and the hills. So anyway, you inspired me to love those 4 lines again.
Thank you. They're beautiful 4 lines, and I also have to say it's wonderful to hear about rain in most of the West. From Colorado West, it's been a very dry year.
Yes.
So rain is always welcome. We have been getting little sprinkles here the last couple days. Maybe I will say a little bit about action, and if you have more thoughts of other questions, please, or comments, please chime in. Sam has a longer list, which I haven't had a chance to look through completely. And it was also hard because things are changing so rapidly right now. And it's like, I remember when I first started working on this, I was collaborating with scientists at Scripps Institute of Oceanography. And I actually, I have this whole project I've done of diagramming future climate in the form of tree rings. And they really become like a tightening noose. But I also did an animation. And the animation started with what the science Richard Somerville was saying, that in in 2012, we had to reduce carbon emissions by X percentage per year. By 2020, it was 9%. And who knows what it is now. And this was to stay beyond 2 degrees centigrade warming, not even 1.5. But, and we're going in the opposite direction. And there's so many things happening at once. There's so much fear and intimidation. And I have to mention, I mean, in my neighborhood or just south of my neighborhood, there was an ICE raid the other day and they came in full regalia. People were out on the streets protesting. There were flashbangs to disperse the crowd. I mean, this is all about intimidation. And it's all the more important to speak up. To think in broadest terms, the two kinds of frameworks within which one could contest or propose action was the National Environmental Quality Act, which was first enacted in 71 or 72, that required that whenever you want to do something, and this includes restoration after fire, or massive, even changes, what you want to do to prevent fire, that you have to do some kind of environmental analysis, environmental impact statement, or environmental assessment. And many states have adopted similar rules, and it's been a really, really powerful mechanism to encourage holistic thinking. The second thing was the Endangered Species Act. I don't remember the year of that, but that has also been a very powerful piece of legislation, because you have to, even though it's focused on an individual animal or plant or organism, insect, you have to think in terms of the being's habitat, which means thinking more holistically. So, and I'm sure I'll let others add more in a minute, but just thinking in that framework, I mean, and then there were all the incentives for energy development and this and that. There is a sense right now of urgency. We have to do something. So the first pieces of legislation, and I thought one of them had already passed, but according to Sam's research, no, were things like Save Our Sequoias Act and Fix Our Forest Act, which sound like great things, but it's like, oh no, we have to act quickly. So we don't have time for environmental analysis. Let's just, so there are lots of good things in those proposals, but they say we'll forego environmental analysis because we don't have time. That, in everything that I see, is really dangerous, especially when I read a lot of the Forest Service reports that were, written by well-meaning people, but have strategies that don't seem to make sense from what I've observed in the forest. And I do have a science background. And so there's not even the possibility of having these discussions now. And yes, you could on the other side say that there are people who question all of the practices and maybe are too eager to make lawsuits about everything, but we have to have these discussions. The second thing, and so now even those acts, we can talk about that, but the Forest Service has, Trump has said now that for 60% of Forest Service actions, we don't need environmental analysis at all. And also firing all the scientists who used to do the analysis. And then when the Endangered Species Act, the comment period is over now, but they also wanted to change the act so that changing the habitat of a species that a species lived in was no longer considered taking. And when you got the Endangered Species Act so that you don't have to consider habitat, you might as well not have it. So Sam's put a whole lot of stuff into the chat. I'll let her say more. Bill, I see you shaking your head, and you may have more to add. But I just wanted to offer this context into some of what's going on right now, and the urgency to really do everything we can to say no, and also say no to taking back all of the, it was Inflation Reduction Act, wasn't the bit's name, but all of the incentives for clean energy development and everything, and all the defunding of the EPA. So I'm done with my little, I hope this wasn't a rant, but we do need to know what's happening. Anyone, and particularly to start with Sam, and then Bill, would you like to add anything?
Yeah, I put a whole bunch in there, and it might be a little overwhelming. I think it's possible to download the chat so that you can save it for later. I don't know if Jeff, you know how to do that. But maybe we can send some of these out. I could give them to Chloe to send by email in the email that comes afterwards, so you can spend time with these. The first set was just to give more information about the Fix Our Forests and Save Our Sequoias Act in particular, as well as Trump's plan to gut the endangered species protections. I also have the links to these acts. If anybody's interested, I could put those in there so you can look at them directly yourself. Perhaps the most important set is the last set I just put in, which is titled Take Action. So these are different places and organizations that I've come across that are making it easy to speak up and add your voice, to write to your senators or to write to the secretaries for the Department of Agriculture and Department of Interior, to add more dissent to what's happening. Now, whether or not where that goes, we don't know, but we need all the voices we can right now. And the very last link in there, the Climate Forest Coalition, has over 125 different organizations that are working very actively to protect our forests and our species. So that's another place, the very last link, where you could go and perhaps get involved either with a national organization or one in your area. Like they have one, the Oregon folks have a specific one dedicated to that. So that link will show you organizations where it's more than just writing a letter to your senator. Maybe you can donate, maybe you can get involved in direct action through some of those organizations.
I'll just say Green Faith is another one, particularly for people in Boulder. And to save the chat, there's 3 small dots in the upper corner of the chat. Right hand, left, I get confused. But you can see the 3 small dots. And if you push on those dots, that will allow you to save the chat. So, Bill, do you have some thoughts you'd like to add?
Nothing significant. That's a great resource. And thank you, Ruth, for a new skill in using Zoom. I appreciate that. I would just say not to feel overwhelmed, but to take the time to call and write a letter to your senators and your representative is well worth your time. They're not going to hear that much. And it really stands out when someone takes the time to do that. These are times that's necessary. So I would just suggest become your member of Congress pen pal about the issues with the Endangered Species Act, because there is a concerted and very intentional effort to, first of all, undo the National Environmental Policy Act that Ruth mentioned, and a recent Supreme Court decision, 8-0 vote, does a lot to undermine the strength of that policy. But the next step is to, in the courts and elsewhere, to undermine the Endangered Species Act. I know it's hard not to feel overwhelmed or depressed by it all, but certainly the universal solvent for that is to actually do something. And so thank you, Sam, for providing it. I'll just say, having been a paid advocate for almost 30 years, that it was really folks out in every walk of life taking action that made the difference. Because it's always going to be organized people dealing against organized money. And we're in the heart of that right now. Yeah, thank you.
And what is the Supreme Court decision that you were referring to?
The Supreme Court, it may be a little over a week ago, on an 8-0 vote, voted to greatly constrain the scope of NEPA analysis. It was regarding an oil train proposal in Utah. that will run oil cars along the Colorado River, believe it or not. And the court said you don't have to look at downstream impacts of that kind of development, the carbon footprint, for example. So there's a great constraining there. And then the agencies themselves are constraining the amount of analysis they're doing. Approving a uranium mine in 10 days, for example, just occurred through the National Environmental Policy Act. So it's a great shift, and people speaking up is one of the key ways we're ever going to get back on track. And then I think supporting Indigenous people in their rights to this land that was stolen from them, for their cultural ways to reemerge, because that's what provided so much of the health of the forest in the United States. Sorry to go on at such length, Jeff, but thank you.
No, thank you for everything. This is really helpful. And yes, it's really important to support Indigenous people who've suffered so much and yet hold so much of the knowledge and are still so much in the front line. Anything else? Well, people are thinking, I'm going to share one other thing in the chat. And what I'm sharing is just another pet project of mine, which is that sequoias only grow in this very small band in Southern California, South Central California, but they've actually been carried around the world. I was invited to do a project in the Netherlands, and lo and behold, there was a sequoia down the street. There, I was up in Berkeley. There are sequoias, and there's sequoias, I've been told, in New Zealand and Australia, and they're all over Europe and in Argentina, a couple other places in South America, South Africa. So this is a project just trying to contemplate what these trees that always inspire awe can inspire us to think about. So this is a project on the web, but if any of you care to add your thoughts, I would be most grateful. I haven't really had time to distribute this project. There is a brochure. Actually, this is available in the Netherlands, except you can't really see it because I'm on, here, I have to,
You have to turn off your blur. Yeah.
I just did. So, I mean, this is not the right copy, but this is available live in this town in Berghamstede where I did this in Dutch and English. But it would be wonderful if any of you can offer comments online. I'd appreciate it, just to get the dialogue going. So any other, although I will say I led a walking tour of the sequoias that had been planted in Santa Fe, New Mexico earlier this year. They're all over, but they can inspire thinking broadly. Any other closing comments, observations?
Yeah, I'll just add, Ruth and I, when we were there, were kind of dreaming and envisioning, how to do more of a group bearing witness retreat. Bill, you sound like someone that might be a good person to connect with to dream that up, maybe sometime in the future. There's, some challenges logistically to make that possible for people of different, bodies and capabilities, but we think it would be a wonderful thing to offer at some point to welcome others into this direct, intimate experience. Yeah.
I'm so glad you mentioned that, Sam, because I meant to, and next summer, it's still a dream that it could be possible. And the areas we went this year, you still have to get permits to go into the real burnt area. So we could only take a limited number of people there or not go there, but there are many other places to go in more gentle burnt areas. So it would be nice to plan something with a larger group of people.
Well, Ruth and Sam and Bill and any others who are interested in this, Zen Peacemakers would be happy to be in the middle of trying to help coordinate and promote and organize such an event, a bearing witness event like that.
Lisa just asked in the chat, how would you learn? So yeah, we would certainly put the word out if it was something that was a little more organized like that. And I'll put my contact in here, and you've got from Ruth put her
Mm.
site is on the chat there, so you can connect with each of us individually. In whatever.
If we were going to do something, I assume that Jeff, you have the emails of the people that attend these events.
Chloe does, yes.
Chloe does, so that we would send information to.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, but yet another reason to subscribe to the Zen Peacemakers newsletter too. So that's how we would get the word out. So, well, it feels like we're probably at the end of our time, unless there's anything else somebody would like to share. I'll pause for a beat. Thank you all for sticking with us for the hour and a half. And I have to throw this in, just my nature. But as far as taking action goes, 2 words: midterms. 17 months away. It begins now. And that's one way we can slow down some of this bad trend that we are witnessing. So anyway, finally, I wanted to say we do record this. So if anybody wants to revisit or share it with others, it takes Jim a few days to cook it and get it up on the website, but by Monday it'll probably be up, and it's available to. Oh, Lisa, there you are. I see your hand.
Sorry. I just thought of one other thing, because you asked multiple times, if there were anything else we could think of to do. And actually, there is a really fabulous website called the Capital Institute. And so part of my work has been doing what I call root cause analysis, like where is all this coming from? And where it's coming from is, if you go to a website called Earth Overshoot Day, it calculates how many planet Earths it would take to provide the resources for the economic framework we have right now, which is endless growth on a finite planet. And we're up to 6 planet Earths. So Trump he's kind of like the icon for a mass of people who are stuck in a system that needs to get a certain percent over what they got last year, every single year indefinitely. And this to me looks like panic crisis, how crazy it's gotten. But there's some really interesting, so if that's what's causing the problem, how might we reimagine a circular economy? And that's what Capital Institute is doing. And they have some beautiful sustainable concepts. And there are actually quite a lot of projects around transitioning to a circular economy. It's like bubbling up in the culture in ways that doesn't hit the mainstream press. But I think if we're gonna save ourselves, we need to figure out how to provide a life raft to the people who are stuck in this reinforcing, lethal loop, systems loop. So I'll just put that link in the chat.
Thank you, Lisa. Thank you.
Them for you, so they're in there. Thank you for that.
Well, we're at the end of our time, Ruth and Sam. Thank you so much for sharing, and for everybody else who contributed by sharing your thoughts and your heart and your ideas. Come see us again for another Peacemaker Circle, and I wish you a good day, and everyone take care of yourselves and take care of someone else. So.